assessment, not tomorrow, but on, what is today, Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
So mid-chapter assessment we'll do on Thursday, it'll be 9-1 through 9-3. Okay. And we are going to finish today, 9-3, that'll be due tomorrow. And then we will go on to 9-4 tomorrow. And then the mid-chapter assessment though will be Thursday, 9-1 through 9-3. 9-4, not sure if it'll be a 2-day thing or a 1-day thing, but I won't put it on the mid-chapter assessment. It's just more factoring. So yesterday we were talking about factoring with what I called the trial and error method. So with that being said, yes sir.
I never took the chapter. Well, I don't agree with it.
Okay. When do you want to take that?
Like, try to get done as soon as possible.
Okay. Today? Are you ready for it?
I think that I just won't get done.
You want to study?
I could probably take it tomorrow or Thursday.
Okay. Tomorrow? Sounds good. So with that, again, there might be some methods to factor these outside of just the guess and check method. I am going to, we'll just do a few more examples today. We're not going to do anything new. It's not like new guess and check methods. We'll just do a few more examples for practice and then set you to task on your homework. So if you find another method, feel free to use that method. It's no problem. You know, watch a video on it or something. I just prefer the guess and check, keep it straightforward with that. So let's do, this is 9-3 continued. More factoring with the guess and check method. We'll just, I don't know what example number it is. We'll just call it number 1 for today. So number 1 for today, if you have 30x squared minus 100x minus 250. Okay, now in this case, I will direct this to the steps in factoring. Usually I just, okay, go ahead, factor it, and then we guess and check or something. And then I'm like, oh, don't forget, look for what they have in common. So that is always the first thing you should look for is what do they have in common in factoring, okay? And if they have something in common, we want to pull that out, and it'll make our numbers smaller and easier to work with. You actually wouldn't have to pull something out in common. You can still factor it. It just wouldn't be necessarily its simplest factored form, or it makes it more challenging because the numbers are bigger. So when we look at this, what do we recognize is in common with all three pretty quick? 10, right? So first step in factoring is factor out what they have in common. So we pull the 10 out. All right, once we pull the 10 out, we realize that we are left with this quadratic and this quadratic, right? It's a trinomial, but we call it a what? Quadratic, because it's something being, what makes it a quadratic? Something being squared. Okay, so if it's something being squared for that trinomial, we call it a quadratic. Now, if it had something being cubed, then it would be called a cubic. Okay, so, but in this case, it's something being squared, so we call it a quadratic. With this, we recognize the coefficient in front of the squared term, in front of the quadratic term, is not 1. If it was 1, then we can ask the question, what times what gives us 25 added together gives us 10? We don't have to, we can just focus on those two things. That's it. Since it's not 1, we go into a guess and check method, right? And that's what we were working on yesterday. So we leave the 10 out there. Don't forget that. We go parentheses, we go parentheses, we go parentheses, right? And then the nice thing about 3x squared is you have a bunch of options for it. No, you only have one option. Now, when it was something like 4x squared, we'd have to say, well, is it 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? We had a couple options. With the 3x squared, very straightforward, it's just 3x and x. Okay, now if you write x and 3x, that's fine too, right? Because 3x times x is 3x squared. If you wrote x and 3x instead, x times 3x is 3x squared, so it doesn't matter for that. Okay, so now let's consider this. If they're both negative here, okay, and specifically looking at this one right here, if this is a negative, that means a positive times a negative gave us that, right? So I usually don't worry about where the sign is, because we talked about that yesterday. If you get the correct number in the middle but the wrong sign, then you just swap the signs real quick. So I'm not too worried about the signage, okay? As you develop your skill sets, you can pay attention to it and get it right the first time. But I'm not too worried about that, just throw it up there. Okay, now, with that, we know whatever is here and here, this times this has to give me that, right? So the first terms, it's the FOIL method, the first terms give us this, the last terms give us this. This term is made up of your outwards and your innards. Okay, so how do I get 25? And the nice thing about 25 is it's either 5 and 5 or 25 and 1. Again, we talked about kind of working through the progression of what makes sense, kind of logical, like reasoning. If I threw a 25 right here, because hey, just pick something, go with it, that's going to give me for my outwards 75, right? And then my innards is 1. Is 75 and 1 getting me anywhere near 10? No. If I said, well, what if I did 25 and 1? Even then, a 3 and a 25, will that get me to a 10? No. So that's like an area where as you work through it, you might be able to identify quicker and be like, I'm not going to mess with 25 and 1 because that's going to get me nowhere near 10, understanding my outwards and my innards. So I'm going to erase that, and then somebody said 5 and 5. That's my only other option, right? 5 and 5 or 25 and 1. Now we just do a quick check. We say outwards negative 15 plus 5.
Negative 10.
Negative 10, right? So it's in part of the FOIL method. Outwards and innards, negative 15 plus 5 gives me negative 10. Is that what I want? Yeah, you bet. So therefore, that would be my answer right there. Again, I'm going to write the incorrect one like this, just briefly, and show you or remind you. If you said, well, yeah, you got lucky, you made it positive and then negative. What if I had accidentally made it negative then positive? Okay, no problem. It's just because you say, okay, 15x minus 5x gives me a positive 10x. What am I looking for? Negative 10x. So positive 10x. Oh, correct number, wrong sign. Just change the signs like that, and then you're set. Okay, so that's why I'm not too worried about the signage initially, because you'll still get the same number. Okay, so let's do another one. These are, okay, let's take a look at this one. What happens when you have, let's say this, 2x squared minus 64 minus 8x?
Oh, gosh, how do you know when to bring a number out in the front?
When they have something in common.
Couldn't you just put it in standard form?
So like, you're over here, like how do I know to bring 10 out front?
Yeah.
Because they have a 10 in common, that's when you bring it out. If they don't have anything in common, you don't bring anything out. Somebody said something, moving on to number 2.
Just put it in standard.
Yeah, put it in standard form. So this one's like, because now we are not asking what times what gives us 8 added together gives us 64, because it's not in standard form, right? So make sure you put it in standard form. So rewrite the problem so you get it into standard form. It's okay, I'm going to write 2x squared minus 8x minus the 64. Then I'm going to pull out a, because I'm going to look and say, what do they have in common? A 2. So I'm going to pull that 2 out. It's going to come out front, and we look at what do we have left. Once we divide the 2 out, we have x squared minus 4x minus 32. This one we like It's easier, usually, because what's the coefficient in front of the quadratic term, in front of the squared term? 1. So when the coefficient is 1, that's when we get to just ask the question, what times what gives you a negative 32 added together gives you a negative 4. So you quickly go x and x, right? Because that'll give you x squared. And then factors of 32. 32 and 1 will get me nowhere near 4. So that doesn't make any sense. 16 and 2 does not get me near 4. So what are my options? What are the other factors of 32?
4 and 8.
4 and 8. Would a 4 and an 8 get me to 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. So we say, okay, 4, and then we say 8. And then we recognize if the middle term is negative,
Put the negative.
then the negative needs to be on the bigger term, right? So it'd be a negative 8, positive 4, like that.
So whenever like the middle term is negative, that means the outside's negative, like every time.
The outside's negative?
Yeah, but like
The bigger number.
the bigger.
The bigger number. Yeah, not necessarily the outside, because we could say negative 8 plus 4. Like that.
Yeah.
You'll get the same answer.
Okay.
So, which means, oh, what do you mean by the outside? I guess.
Wait, you said like, can you repeat what you said? Like, the middle was negative.
If this is like x squared minus 4x, because I'm saying what times what gives me a negative 32 added together gives me a negative 4. So when you're adding two numbers together and you want it to be negative, your larger number needs to be negative. So the negative 8, the negative would go into 8.
Okay.
If you mess that up and you're like accidentally put positive and actually put minus, if you do a quick check, what do you get? X times x is
X squared.
x squared, negative 32, right? And then you do your outers, negative 4x, and your innards, 8x, right? So negative 4x plus 8x will give me a positive 4x. That's a no-go. So it's, oh, that gave me a positive, now I just need to switch it like that. And then is that in factored form? Yeah, you bet. You have 2 times this, we're in factored form, can't do anything more. Let's do, I think, just one more example, and I think we'll be set here. And then we can get working on the homework, if you haven't done so already. So let's go ahead and have you try this one, 2x squared minus 18xy, and then minus 104y squared. So go ahead, try this one on your own. We did one kind of similar to this yesterday, when we threw in the double negative. I'm sorry, the double variable, not the double negative. Threw in the double variable. Don't forget your first step in factoring, right? That we're emphasizing on these 3 problems. Do they have something in common? Make sure we're on the right track. Yes, right? What do they have in common? 2. So make sure you factor that 2 out. Okay, so let's make sure we factored out after the 2. What did we get on the inside once we pulled the 2 out? What were we left with? Does that look right? X squared minus 9xy minus 2y squared, okay? What we love is the x squared has a coefficient of 1, alright? So that one's really easy. What do we put here? X and x. Nice. How do we deal with the y component?
Just add y on the other.
Yeah, there you go. So now it's taken care of. Our variables are all set. So now just worry about the numerical values, the coefficients. You worry about the 52 and the 9. You don't have to worry about, oh, is it x, y, y, x, what's going on with it? Done. Because x times x gives us x squared, y times y gives us y squared. Your outers, xy, and your innards, xy, give you xy. So we're set, right? Okay. So now we just have to figure out what times what gives you a negative 52, added to the other gives you a negative 9. Again, if the signage is confusing, it'll all wash out when you check it, right? But if we know in this case your middle term is negative, then your larger of the 2 numbers needs to be negative. So we go through, if you can do a mental check, that's easy. The easiest, right? Like 52 and 1. Does that give us 52? No. Yes, but does it add together to give you 9? No. 2 and 26 gives you 52, but does it give you 9? No. So now we're down to
4 and 13.
4 and 13, right? So they say, okay, 4y, 13y. Which one's negative, which one's positive?
13 is negative.
13 is negative. That one's positive. A quick, amazing to me, that on the test, or mid-track assessment, unless you run out of time, amazing to me that people miss these because they don't check them. Because a quick check, you just do the FOIL method, right? And I always do it this way, like x times x, x squared, negative 52, check, right? And the y squared. And then you just do your outers and innards, negative 13 plus 4, right? Negative 13 plus 4. I already know it's x, y, and x, y, so I'm not going to put that notation just because it's a little cumbersome on the check. Negative 13 plus 4 is negative 9. Is that what I wanted? Yeah. So just do your FOIL method to check. Okay, so we're going to stop there, give you 20 minutes, get your homework done on this section. And then, yes, homework sheets. So I think I gave this, just to confirm, 1 through 33 odd on this one, right? 42 and 47?
Yes.
Okay, so I made sure to type that correctly in here. So same homework on this 9-3, right? 9-3. So you're just carrying on with 9-3. And we will have a mid-chapter assessment 9-1 through 9-3 on what day? Thursday. Okay? We will start 9-4 tomorrow, but it won't be a mid-chapter assessment. And I hope it doesn't mess anybody up. Yes, Cody.
I feel like we deserve cookies and milk.
Oh, yeah.
Do you?